did it! I did it!
When I first watched The Lion King 2 as a kid, I always assumed Kovu was Scar's son. It made perfect sense. He was the chosen heir, raised by Scar's most loyal follower, and groomed to take revenge. But rewatching it recently revealed subtle yet undeniable clues that the timeline was completely impossible. This timeline inconsistency led me to dig deeper, analyzing every scene, every line of dialogue, and every background detail. What I discovered was shocking. Kovu's true parentage isn't just a plot hole, it's an intentional mystery that completely changes his character arc. Today I'm sharing everything I found and why this discovery transforms our understanding of The Lion King 2. Let's talk about the biggest plot hole that nobody seems to notice in The Lion King 2. When we look at Kovu prowling around the Pride Lands as this young adolescent lion with his growing dark mane and muscular build, something really weird jumps out at us when we examine the timeline of Scar's death and subsequent events. The Lion King 2 takes place when Kiara goes on her first hunt, her coming-of-age ceremony marking adulthood in lion society. This puts the event several years after Simba defeated Scar. The timeline becomes a jigsaw puzzle with a crucial piece missing when we look at the opening scene. Remember when baby Kovu is held up by Zira while confronting Simba, who's already king? That scene clearly shows Scar was already dead when Kovu was born. This creates a major chronological impossibility. How could Scar personally select Kovu as his heir if he wasn't even alive when Kovu was born? In the scene where Zira confronts Simba at Pride Rock, she's already holding baby Kovu, but Scar has been defeated. The movie's own sequence of events contradicts its central premise. Listen to Zira's careful word choices. She describes Kovu's connection to Scar using terms like chosen one and heir, but never says Scar's son. When Simba banishes the outsiders, she doesn't say, "You're separating a father from his son," or mention any biological connection. She specifically avoids claiming direct parentage despite having every reason to emphasize such a relationship. The animators left visual breadcrumbs too. Kovu and Scar share minimal physical traits. They both have black manes and green eyes, but these aren't unique to Scar. Kovu's stronger build and broader shoulders contrast sharply with Scar's lean, angular frame. If they were father and son, wouldn't the animators have given them more distinctive shared features? The smoking gun comes from Nuka himself. In his moment of frustration about Kovu's special treatment, he blurts out, "Scar wasn't even his father." This bombshell statement is never contradicted by any character. It simply hangs in the air like an uncomfortable truth everyone knows but doesn't discuss. All these clues point to one conclusion: Scar couldn't possibly be Kovu's biological father. This raises fascinating questions. Who is Kovu's real father? Why would Zira fabricate this connection? What purpose does this elaborate lie serve in her quest for revenge against Simba and the Pridelanders? Speaking of Zira's elaborate lie, there's something really strange about the exact words she uses when talking about Kovu and Scar's relationship. The phrase chosen one appears over and over, but son is mysteriously absent from her vocabulary. What if this isn't weird phrasing but an intentional distinction that reveals the truth about who Kovu really is? The pattern in Zira's dialogue throughout the movie tells us something fascinating. When discussing Kovu's connection to Scar, she exclusively uses political terms like chosen heir, hand-picked successor, and the one Scar chose, never once calling him Scar's son. This creates a strange emotional distance, unlike other Disney parent-child relationships where familial terms dominate. There's this key moment during Kovu's training when Zira tells him, "You were the chosen one," and explains how Scar took you in. The scene shows her circling Kovu menacingly, her eyes gleaming with ambition rather than maternal pride. This phrasing sounds like she's describing adoption rather than a biological relationship. Other Disney parents would say, "Your father raised you," or "Your father taught you," instead of this formal took you in language. The movie's visual choices support this theory too. We see multiple flashbacks featuring Scar and Zira together, but not once do we see Scar holding or acknowledging baby Kovu. For a story centered on a father's legacy, this omission speaks volume. If Disney wanted to establish Kovu as Scar's biological son, they would have shown at least one scene with them together, but they deliberately chose not to. Even more telling is how Simba confronts Zira about Kovu in the Outlands. He never mentions Kovu being Scar's son as a reason to distrust him, only saying he was banished with the other outsiders. Wouldn't Scar's biological son be Simba's primary concern? The fact that nobody in the Pride Lands refers to Kovu as Scar's son suggests everyone knows the truth. The Chosen One narrative feels more like a political appointment than family inheritance. It sounds like Scar surveyed available cubs, including his possible biological children like Nuka, and selected Kovu based on strength and potential. This explains Zira's ceremonial language, because it was literally a formal selection process. The dialogue strongly suggests Scar selected Kovu as his successor, despite having no biological connection. This perfectly explains why Zira focuses obsessively on him being chosen rather than being Scar's son. She's not hiding or lying about the relationship. She's accurately describing the political arrangement Scar created before his death. While Zira's careful choice of words hints at the truth, her eldest son Nuka practically screams it out loud in a moment of frustration that most viewers completely overlook. What if the answer to Kovu's mysterious parentage has been hiding in plain sight all along inside a throwaway line from the character who resented him most? Throughout the movie, Nuka's bitterness toward Kovu burns with the rage of someone who believes their birthright was stolen. When gathering firewood with Vitani, Nuka's complaints reveal critical information about their family. If he was so special, why did he need to be trained? I could be a leader if she'd just give me a chance. His desperate tone exposes something deeper about who might actually share Scar's blood. Look closely at Nuka and Scar side by side. The physical similarities tell a powerful story. While Kovu has that powerful build with broader shoulders, Nuka inherited Scar's actual genetic traits, the same scrawny physique, sunken eyes, and that distinctive hunched posture. These are deliberate visual cues from Disney's animators pointing directly to Nuka's true parentage, while Kovu stands apart with his markedly different appearance. Then comes that pivotal moment where Nuka, eyes flashing with hurt and jealousy, bursts out with, "Scar wasn't even his father." His voice cracks with emotion as he delivers this revelation. This specific line drops a massive truth about Kovu's origins right in our laps, deliberately included by Disney but never directly addressed again. The animators even emphasize this moment with Nuka's body language, showing both resentment and painful acceptance of his situation. Nuka constantly seeks approval, lamenting, "I should have been the chosen one," while Kovu reluctantly accepts the mantle of future king. This desperate need for validation makes perfect sense for Scar's actual biological son, who was passed over in favor of an adoptee with better physical qualities. Nuka knows he has the legitimate blood claim, but lacks the strength Scar wanted. Zira's treatment of Nuka reveals even more. She barely acknowledges him except to criticize, "You were supposed to be watching him," she snarls, after Kovu's unauthorized meeting with Kiara. This cold dynamic suggests Nuka represents her greatest disappointment, a biological son of Scar who failed to measure up. The most coherent theory from these clues is that Nuka is Scar and Zira's biological child, while Kovu was adopted from elsewhere. This explains their different appearances, temperaments, and Zira's treatment of them. Kovu wasn't chosen politically. He was brought into their family as a replacement for the son Scar deemed inadequate. But this raises the biggest question. If Scar rejected his own biological son for an unrelated cub with better potential, where did Kovu actually come from? Scar's rejection of his biological son for an outsider cub wouldn't make sense unless that cub had something special worth investing in. But did you know there are two lions from the extended Lion King universe, Nirmala and Surak, who share striking physical similarities with Kovu and live during exactly the right time frame to be his parents? Their existence might be the missing piece to this entire puzzle. When we look beyond the movies into the Lion Guard series, we discover this expanded universe with dozens of new lion characters existing during the same timeline. Among these are Nirmala and Surak from the Night Pride that protected the Tree of Life, a sacred location far from the Pride Lands. They're like two puzzle pieces we never knew were missing until now. Surak's appearance connects him directly to Kovu. Both have that same distinctive dark brown fur that stands in stark contrast to the Golden Pride Lands lions. Surak has those powerful shoulders and strong jaw structure that Kovu inherited. The animation team gave them identical ear shapes and muzzle structures that create an unmistakable family resemblance. The timeline fits together perfectly like a well-crafted investigation board. Nirmala and Surak were adults during Scar's reign, which places them at exactly the right age to have a cub when Kovu would have been born. The Lion Guard shows these lions traveled between territories often, meaning they could have been near the Outlands when chaos erupted after Scar's death. How did Kovu end up with Zira? The Lion Guard reveals that during conflicts, cubs were sometimes sent away for safety. safety. Amid the turmoil after Scar's defeat, Kovu becomes separated from his birth parents. Zira finds this abandoned cub with his distinctive features and recognizes the perfect candidate to raise as Scar's heir. What makes this theory especially compelling is that Night Pride lions possessed healing abilities and spiritual connections. Scar might have recognized this potential in Kovu's bloodline, seeing something valuable that Zira was instructed to nurture. The Lion Guard also mentions conflicts forcing some lions to retreat to the Tree of Life for healing. What if Kovu's parents were injured or trapped far away, unable to return for their cub? This explains why they never reclaimed him, allowing Zira to fully indoctrinate him as Scar's chosen successor. When these connections from across the Lion King universe are assembled, Nirmala and Surak emerge as Kovu's most likely biological parents. Their physical traits match his appearance, their timeline aligns perfectly, and their mystical connections would give Scar compelling reasons to choose their cub despite having his own son. There's something incredibly strange about Kovu's connection to the Pride Lands that the Night Pride theory doesn't fully explain. What if the true answer is much more shocking? What if Kovu's actual parents weren't outsiders at all, but Pride Landers who were exiled after Simba took the throne? This would explain that inexplicable moment when Simba first encounters adult Kovu and seems to recognize something in him before fear and suspicion take over. When Simba defeated Scar and reclaimed the throne, the transition of power couldn't have been perfectly smooth. Scar ruled for years with supporters among the Pride Landers. Some lions benefited from his reign, some believed in his leadership. When Simba returned, these lions faced a terrible choice: renounce their loyalty to Scar or face banishment. Historical lion prides experience these political purges when new males take over. Have you noticed how naturally Kovu adapts to Pride Land ways? Despite being raised with hatred for Simba's pride, he immediately understands their hunting techniques, social customs, and spiritual traditions. When Kiara teaches Kovu about the great kings in the stars, he doesn't dismiss it as foreign propaganda. He seems familiar with the concept but denied access to it. During that stargazing scene, his eyes widen with recognition, not confusion. This innate understanding makes sense if his parents were Pride Landers who told him stories of his homeland before separation. The evidence appears in Kovu's interactions with Simba. There's this tense moment where Simba studies Kovu's face with an expression mixing suspicion and recognition. Kovu reminds Simba of someone specific from his past, someone who might have been banished. What if Kovu's real father or mother was someone Simba knew personally before the exile? This adds another layer to Simba's reluctance beyond his connection to Zira. When Kiara tells Kovu, "You belong here," his reaction isn't confusion, it's acceptance. He doesn't question this statement, he feels its truth deep within himself. This emotional response fits perfectly if he's returning to his ancestral home, rather than entering enemy territory. His blood connection would explain why he feels so instantly at home despite being raised to destroy it. Kovu's name holds a revealing clue. Kovu means scar in Swahili, but that doesn't necessarily make him Scar's son. In lion culture, names carry powerful symbolism. Zira might have deliberately given him this name, not because he was Scar's offspring, but to reinforce a lie about his heritage. By naming him after Scar, she could more easily convince others, and perhaps Kovu himself, that he was the chosen heir. The biggest question remains, who exactly were Kovu's Pride Lander parents? Were they important lions in Simba's pride? Are they still alive somewhere beyond the Outlands? The movie never explores these questions, but they transform how we understand Kovu's journey. Disney's hidden design around Kovu's ancestry might be the most brilliant aspect of The Lion King 2 because they left just enough clues for us to question everything but not enough to give us a definitive answer. What makes this mystery so fascinating is how it transforms Kovu's character arc from a predictable bad father's son turns good storyline into something far more nuanced. When we rewatch with fresh eyes, the experience changes completely. What if the real story is about a cub possibly kidnapped and indoctrinated? Those moments where Kovu intuitively connects with Pride Land ways might be glimpses of his true nature breaking through. This ambiguity makes Kiara and Kovu's love story even more powerful. They're potentially restoring balance disrupted when Kovu was separated from his true heritage. The truth waits in plain sight for curious fans to discover, giving this beloved sequel far more depth than most realize. What hidden connections will you find on your next viewing?